Hello, hello. How are you all doing today? Oh, I need to post something live. 1 second. Okay, right, there we go. Yeah. Welcome to another exciting week of pumping out the features. I had a fairly productive weekend. I mean, a lot of what I've been working on, and this is something that doesn't get seen a lot, is translations. So hopefully, future translations are going to be more solid. And yeah, the temperature is much more pleasant. I've been able to wander around outside without feeling like I'm in a tropical country, which is nice because I like wearing jumpers. I've been able to turn off the fan, which is beautiful, and I'm able to think. Also very good. But yes, right. So yeah, translation should be much better going forward. Fingers crossed. We've got some snazzy new things coming about that. In fact, why don't we have a little look? Let me boot up that app and add it to the screen. By the way, can you hear music in the background? Okay, good, because the last stream it was on as 2, but for some reason when I listened to the VOD it wasn't there. I'm like, what's going on here? Yep, just cycling through Seven from Nine Mountains music. Essentially anything that won't get me in trouble copyright-wise. Right, where are we going to go? We need the... Which app is it? Translation pipeline. There we go. That one... Nope, I'm here. Game window... Oh, that is odd. Well, it can... 1 second. Oh, stream technology stuff. Why is it so difficult? Maybe I'll just make it smaller. There we go. That might just be better. That's my... Oh, Lord, what have I done? Sorry. I am terrible at this technology thing. There we go. Okay. Hey! Right, so you should see, with any luck, the translation pipeline app. Beautiful, right? This is how all the translations get done. Well, all the AI stuff. We have Vadim and his efforts to make the Russian actually readable is a separate thing entirely. But all of the AI translations is processed through this app here. As you see, I have just triggered a run. But if we have a little look at some of these past ones, this is what they look like. Oh, that is not what I meant to do. So we have this... what is this one? So Gemini 3.5 Flash is most of the translation runs. And you can see the hierarchical jobs that get passed through so that the context gets passed through the whole system. And you can see you've got all these nice little prompts. So this is how all the translations get built. And in this one, it is essentially a large chunk of text from the Soul Shard of the Rugong Soul Shard. So this is a little behind the scenes. This is what has taken a lot of the effort this week. It's trying to make this better so that it has more context of what happens. So we have ourselves the original translation, and then that goes to a judge, which then checks the translation. Then for each of the results, we back translate it with a separate model with no context about what the original was, so it's not biased. We then compare if that's similar to what the original was. If it's over a particular limit, great. We give it a big thumbs up. Welcome, welcome. Glad you made it. You're seeing the internals of my translation system here. And then it finally pumps out the data into the file. And you can see there's a variety of different ones here. What is conc? Concept check, right? Yeah. So this is the bit that I added, or part of the bits that I added. Part of it was this grouping of related terms into a single translation, so it knows everything. And the second part is this, where it takes the rendering of a particular piece of text in the UI and says, hey, does this look logical? Given all of the stuff around it. So this is how the model will attempt to see, does it actually work when you put stuff in place? And hopefully, by doing this, it will produce better results downstream. We'll see. Currently, these take a little while to process. They go between like 4 to 6 hours and maybe 2 days, depending on how overloaded Google servers are. So it lags behind the releases. But when this one finishes, we'll do a release of 0.7.5. But yeah, anyway, that was a little a detour on behind the scenes of the translation system. Constantly. Essentially, anytime I remember to do so. It is, as you can see here, there's sometimes I run multiple in a day, sometimes I have big gaps. And it is when I remember or when I think there is a block of text which is ready to go, I will fire it off. I don't currently have like a reconciliation thing if there's 2 running at the same time, so I try to make sure I've only got 1 running at any one time. But yeah, it is fairly regularly. Normally I'll do it about 2 days before I feel like I'm going to do a release, so it's hopefully ready in time, but yeah. It only checks, there's 2 things actually. So it will translate what's new, that's a start. It will also do checks over things it has translated in the past to like validate, do I still think it's good? And it will also propagate changes. So if a user, for example, Adam, reports that a translation in Russian is bad, I'll trigger this. It will download the translation from GitHub, in this case, because it's been synced from Discord. It will then figure out what action is required for that, and that will then propagate out. So I think one he did recently was control was translated as CTRL rather than Russian translation. That has then propagated down to every other string that contains that word is now going to be retranslated. So it kind of just bubbles down. And then if any of those, for example, control bubbles down to key control. So anything that is related to key control will then bubble out as well. And it will do this cascade throughout the translations to validate it. And it also does these regular spot checks. 300 strings at a time out of the 30,000 or so that we have. So yeah, there's a whole load of checks and balances that go through. Actually, I've not clicked this in a while. I don't know if this even works. Cool, well, here we go. I have so far put 611 million tokens in and got 120 million tokens out. I built this metrics panel like 4 months ago and I stopped looking at it. So this is actually me going back for the first time in a while. We can see I mostly use 3.5 Flash. That is the heaviest. This is the model that, after actual testing, is the most reliable for making good translations at a good price. The best one from my separate checks was Claude Opus, but I cannot afford to run 600 million tokens through Claude Opus, I would immediately become bankrupt. So Gemini 3.5 Flash is the best fallback of that. It is close in quality, but it is at a much, much cheaper price. And then all of the kind of small things, like for example, when I have a string, I will check what type it is. Like, is this a tooltip string, or is it a narrative string? That kind of categorization goes through Flashlight and a bunch of other sort of like programmery things where I just need it to make a quick decision. And then we have when Gemini, what's it called? Content filters me, because there are some strings, like the Jowlin's romance dialogue, that Gemini refuses to translate because of its content. We fall back to Grok, because that does not really filter anything. And then we also use Mistral as a second eyes on all the translation to give like some multi-model dynamics as an input, so it doesn't like bias to its own training data. So yeah, anyway, that's the variety of stuff we have. It's fairly solid. It runs fairly well, and it's fairly cheap. These numbers are wrong, by the way. It does not cost $27 to do that run. It costs like $2 maybe. So all in all, much cheaper than the $10,000 per language and 6 months that it would have cost to translate at the time I checked, which was a couple of months ago. But anyway, right. We were not going to talk about translations. I was just excited because that's what I spent all week doing. Let me take us to what we actually are looking to do, which is... Oh, actually, no, wait. Before we talk about that, let me show something else off that's new. You'll see there's a new button right here. It'll be showing up in the next release. Oh, let me actually full screen that. We have a roadmap. Look at this. It's beautiful. So this will give a rough overview of the items that are in progress and are coming in the future. You can also vote on stuff that you might like. You know, if you go, I really like world shaping, you can give it a star. Or, you know, like, if I really want hard mode, you can give it a star. And it's going to then use that so that me, and actually everyone else, you'll all be able to see what's been starred and what hasn't. It's going to help us know what people want. And look, if you want cooking, we can put that on the roadmap too. I mean, it does kind of trail off. The dotted line fades all the way up here. But yeah, this is just a nice one. You can scroll all the way down to the Steam Early Access launch and see all the things that happened on all the dates. Every single weapon rework. I didn't do any things before the Steam Early Access launch because, good lord, I would be here for all year just writing down all the points. So, hey, look, you got a good massive list of everything in the past. But you can see Tournament Overhaul is the big ticket item that we'll be working on now. And Sublime Crafting Rework will be released in version 0.75. And then these are the things that may come in the future. I mean, probably most of them will come. For example, world shaping is most likely to be there. We'll write more things onto the list as it comes. But yeah, so hopefully this will give people a bit more confidence about what we're up to. But with all of that detouring out the way, we are on to what we're actually doing. Yeah, that's because this is what's going to be released. Oh, actually, yeah, wait, yeah, good point. Maybe the UI here should be what's currently released rather than what's being worked on. It's a good point. Let's click our fancy new button and be like, that is not what I meant to do. Let me get the box. There we go. I love this. This is so cool. It's a UI text. You Are Here should be the latest released one, not the one currently being worked on. There we go. I can credit myself. Beautiful. Yep. Please do make use of this as much as you can. It is awesome for my ability to track bugs and respond to them, because it obviously attaches all the information for me. But yes, anyway, so our purpose of this stream is to make research better. Because at the moment, it's kind of ass. It's boring, it's annoying. So, look, feel free to request it. Request it with a report tool. I'd be more than happy to add support for that. Well, the agent will be more than happy to add support for that. So, research. We've been toying with ways to make it better for a while, and we probably will change it again. However, it was a very, very good suggestion from Primal, so thank you for making it, that we just make it a queue, and then we can make it, it's at least a good stopgap until we make it super fancy. If we add a skill tree or something, because I would love to add like a whole skill tree. That the current one is just bad, so making it at least one step towards where we want to go is going to be great. And then in the future, we can have skill trees, we can add research trees, we can have mini games, we can add all sorts of nonsense. So, I have thrown sword at the problem, and I've not read anything it's produced. And as you can see, it's kind of awful. But we're going to try and make it good. So the idea is, the research becomes a queue. You add items into the queue, and they just stack up. Load into the vault, as it were. And this will passively, over time, build up researched recipes that you'll then be able to return and collect. Aside from that, you'll be able to use Sublime Crafting to craft glyphs that make it speed up. So for each glyph you correctly craft, it'll be 30% faster, multiplicatively. And you'll be able to add more glyphs as you unlock more harmony types. So it's obviously linking together nicely like that. And so hopefully it will make it a bit more... Oh, and you don't lose the materials. So once you add the materials, if you remove them, you'll get it back. And once you've researched everything about that material, you'll also get the material back. It'll just be placed into the vault as it's being researched. So you don't need to get multiple of everything. Aside from that, we will be increasing the base time to research. As you can see here, this is what is this? This is a core formation item. I don't know, it's a body forging item. It takes 2 months. If I put in this one takes half a year. Wait, is that half a year? Wait, how many days are in a year? It takes a while. For a pillar creation one. So you will need to do the Sublime Crafting to speed it up and get it to a point where it's not just an enormous time sink. But because it's passive, you can go do an expedition, you come back and you'll have a ton of stuff researched. Yeah. So. What do we need to polish? Well, first things first, the whole layout currently is a bit bad. Yeah, 360, yeah, because we have evenly sized months. So the screen layout's currently bad. I don't like this thing here. I think it looks really tacky. I think the page layout's fine, like the whole vault and research log. There's no issues with this at all. This bit here is fine, this load of material. I have no issue with that, looks nice. We will need a horizontal scroll bar in this case, because it is a timeline explicitly. So there's really no way around that one. If there was a better way to represent a timeline without a horizontal scroll bar, I'd be totally on it. This is a custom scroll bar. This is not a standard HTML. Look at it. It's styled nicely. I mean, we can also just make it a, you have to do, so no actual scroll bar, you click and pan or something. This whole thing, we'll need to make it look better. And I know that's a very vague statement, but we'll figure out what better is. And also, these glyphs need to be inside the dialogue, because visually anything that's interactable on this screen should be within the dialogue, otherwise players won't notice it. So this will need to be moved, I don't know, maybe it's a row underneath here where they get lit up as you unlock them, and you can, if you haven't got one, you click it or something. I'm not exactly sure yet. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? We come into it and when we start off, it is just bad, and we'll just experiment until we can say it's not bad. The main issues we have with this, I mean, first thing, the whole style is bad. Like, it shouldn't have cracks in the background. That's just weird. The dates are odd, because that's not how we mark dates, really. Like, we probably want it to be more of a full description, like here, and probably with the year 1077 Celestial or something, something nice like that. Also, this star thing, don't like it. It should probably be multiple blocks to indicate each instance of the research completing. And the actual blocks themselves are just too vertically large. So we can probably dedicate more of the timeline space to the date indication, because the actual icons themselves can be quite small. Like, we can make them just be the icon and a time, and then it's quite minimal. That would be nice, actually. Maybe we place the icons and we have like an arrow thing that goes across here that indicates where the next, the time it covers, and then you're just seeing these item icons along. And then the other part we need to do as well is the visuals for completing a research. Actually, let me just skip ahead in time to see what that looks like, because I actually don't know what it's built. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of bad. This looks god awful, but yeah, the concept is there. Obviously, this will need polishing too. If I click this, what's going to happen? Well, that was also terrible. So there's quite a few layers that need polishing to make it look good. But hey, this is where we start. Like, a lot of times with this will be, I have a rough idea, I throw it at Claude, it will build something like this, which is kind of ass, and it needs polishing. Sadly, AI is not yet at the state of it being one-shottable for most problems. It will come in the future. We won't need me at all. We'll just throw it a problem and it will just go like, build Ascent from No Mountains 2, make it good, no mistakes, and we'll get a better game. One day. Okay, so where will we start? Let's make the timeline look good. Well, here's the thing. It's only slop because it's bad, right? So the assumption will be when the AI gets good enough, it will no longer be slop because it will be producing better things than humans do. It's only slop right now because of the quality is not quite there, but that won't last. That quality problem will go away. It is only a matter of time. Okay, so I'm assuming the timeline block is what it's built for the timeline blocks, you would have thought. I mean, yes. There will be some element of that. I mean, they did that with Bun, right? They said rewrite in Rust, and it did it. I don't think it was 2 hours, but it's not far off. You need smart enough AI with enough context to know what it's doing, and you'll be sorted. So first things first, let's get rid of this tooltip. Don't need it. I mean, we'll re-add a tooltip once we have stuff in place. Let's just see that is the right thing. Yep, good, that was the tooltip. So we'll just put the icon only, and we'll get rid of the rest of the text. Close, what's that for? Oh, I guess that. So maybe clicking the item should remove it. Ooh. And maybe there should be a cross button next to it. That's where we'll remove it. Yeah, so we'll keep the close for now. We will move it though. This is, yeah, absolutely positioned. Okay. So we remove that. That's the text we don't want. Yep, we can remove the date underneath it. Nice. Well, we won't have a box. So the top right won't make sense anymore. At least that's my current vague vision. We'll see. So we can get rid of this, and this lot. Okay. So as you can see now, the X is just floating in nothingness, which is not ideal. So this is... Let me just double check. Background. I think. Okay, so that does fill the whole area. That's good. So we can essentially have the item component and then the arrow on the right. Oh, did my stream pick up? I do apologize. My internet is not... Well, I never intended to stream, right? So the quality of my internet is not great. I have great download speed, but consistency and upload speed and uptime is not anything that I've ever tried to optimize. So we'll make it a 2-pixel... or flex grow, I guess. Yeah, flex grow. 1 background guild. Okay, yep. Do we need to align self? Oh no, actually, 1 second. Let me do it at the higher level. Align items. Center. Get in the middle. Beautiful. Big delay. Okay, so I also turned off the what's it called? The buffering thing that tries to reduce stream, that tries to make it a bit smoother. So it's more real time, but there's absolutely no buffer if anything happens. Because there's no stream delay. But hey, that's where we are. So anyway, we've got these lines, which obviously don't look great at the moment, but we'll have like a little arrow bit at the end. Let's add that one on the end. It's kind of a little bit more like what's it called? Immersive? Immersive is probably the wrong word. But you know, it's not as giant. We can also now make it less tall, which would be cool. And yeah, we do need to move the, obviously this X needs to be probably closer to here. Maybe just like on the right of the item, like right there. We also need to replicate each item for the number of times that particular item has, well, the number of recipes that particular item has. So you know this will continue researching. Like this one here should have a whole thing because it actually has 2 recipes, so it should still be researching. But it is unhappy. It's just, yeah, there's a whole load of stuff we need to do on that one. So maybe we'll quickly do that first. We just need to replicate each research timeline block per available recipe. Where are you used? Here. Okay. Laid. Entry candidates. So probably what we want to do actually is change it so that they actually have multiple entries natively, rather than currently I think it's generating 1 entry per item. Yes, you can drag and drop. Oh, not from the material list. That's a good idea. You can drag and drop within the material list to reorder them. What do you mean scroll backwards in time? Oh, and fast there, the research is you being put to work. I hope that you have played through some of the Life Flourishing content. But it's Infinite Reflections. It is a formation that essentially copies yourself in all sorts of different manners, experimenting on an item in an infinite cascade. So you can take what would take someone centuries down to months. That's the concept of the Vault of Infinite Reflections. That's why it has that name. It is yourself in the formation mirrors doing the experimentation. Right, so I guess what we want to do is build up the map. That's not the map, sorry. The research. The research entries based on the recipes. Or do we? Yeah, so the issue with just clicking it to remove it is the idea of the dragging. I guess maybe it's fine. I get very frustrated if I have a UI where you have the click to drag functionality and you accidentally unclick before dragging and it removes the item and you're like, oh, damn it. But maybe it's fine actually, because that is what we do for techniques. So, and it's not a problem there. So maybe it's fine. We'll just do that because it is similar to how techniques and crafting action loadouts work. As for the manifestations question, it's not for this realm, but the next realm, the idea is your inner world will do its own research, and you'll have items, techniques, and things that are unique to your inner world that they're being researched within that world, and you'll be able to use those too. So you have this alternative research path, I guess, based on your manifestations, your life forms doing work. Yeah, okay, so maybe we need to, before I stop faffing around, maybe we need to think about the actual flow from being a researchable item that's in the future or one that's done. And yeah, maybe the progress bar just fills up and then it, yes, and then it becomes it unveils the recipe. And then you click it and it goes push, 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 and they fall down. Oh, yes, like a cool animation where they kind of like cascade down and they pop out and they like fly around the screen and then they pop up. Yeah, bish bash bosh, whoosh whoosh whoosh, zoom zoom zoom, all that kind of good stuff. Right. Big pivot. We can actually use this similar gold like effect for the it filling up because it looks pretty good. It is a nice this gold gradient is the one we use like everywhere, and it does look really cool. So we would probably want maybe it's the silhouette of the item that you're going to research appears next to the, or maybe at the end. So it's here and it fills up, and at the end of this line is the silhouette of the item. A vertical list. If we're going to do a vertical list, we probably want to put like load materials on the left, and then the research queue tree graph list on the right, with like the current date, and it goes down into the future, and then the bar kind of fills up as it goes down, and you can scroll vertically. Yeah. What's the item? Yeah, that's true actually. Yeah. Yeah, it just becomes a stack within it, right? So you have, well, because you want to indicate the date that each of the items is researched, right? And so you have them appearing there. So you have this kind of like the items in, it has a line, it has one thing, it has another line, it has another thing. Then it's the next item. Because an item can have multiple, like you could have like 4 or 5 different items that researches. So you don't want to put them next to the item. You want to put them below, because the first one will be done after 60 days and the second one after 120 days, and then so on and so forth. Yeah, maybe a horizontal view would be better, because then also we can have a bar at the top, which is the dedicated area for the glyphs. So it has like the glyph bar here, and or I guess underneath the vault and research log, of course, because those need to stay. And then you have underneath that, you have the load materials panel, and you have the research timeline panel, and that would then, yeah, I think that sounds like a nicer UI. I agree. Pivoting time. So, I also want to check what it's done around the actual data. How exactly it is handling the separation of when there's multiple items to research from a single entity. What is it up to? Research time. Well, no, where's the research screen? Oh, it's down here. wait, let me. Let's transition. Something else. Here we go. Right, let's draw something. Wait, let me copy some of the screen across. Okay, here we go. Hello, welcome. So, this bottom area is what we'll put on the left. Well, it's not actually. Oh, the title is. We'll keep the title part. There we go. Okay. So underneath here, we would have our glyphs. Then we have our boxes for our items. Materials. Yeah, look, we're the fanciest images ever here. And then on the right, we have our timeline. We then have item. This is like the full alert. This is the silhouette. We can have dates like M12, whatever. And this will be full up. Progress. Work. As you'll know, as soon as I actually started working on the game full time, Life Flourishing got made. And it was about a year and a bit. But yeah, I was just too busy to work on the big stuff. So it's just all the small stuff. But hey, you got a lot of cool things in the meantime. You got some very, very good, solid reworks of things. A lot of stuff that was kind of required to sort of like begin making Life Flourishing really work well. Yeah, well, we'll be working harder now. I think it was like 3-4 months ago that I actually went full time on the game, so I can actually dedicate the time it deserves and actually build something really good. But yeah, we have a few things coming. We have a few things coming in the meantime to sort of like polish over major holes or weaknesses of the game, and then after that, work starts on on world shaping. Sorry. Yeah, and admittedly, I will be putting a greater focus into just getting the realms in, because that is what sells, right? That is what people want to see. And it is progressing towards that V1 release, so that we can then see what things actually need to be done once we have a full game around it. Because it's easy to say that something needs to be changed in isolation. It is much harder to know what will need to be changed once we have all the other bits in. Maybe that thing that felt like it was massively important isn't important. You know, like for example, body forging. We could spend a ton of time making body forging really solid. Or we could realise that people will spend maybe half an hour in body forging, so it's not worth putting the time on that. It's worth spending time somewhere else. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah, some of it was tightened up a little bit. Some of the wording was changed. Nothing has been majorly changed, other than some details here and there. Like with the First Elder, it was the specifics of, you know, his origin was added, rather than it just being left vague and open. Well, okay, let's not be... It's not voting the priority, it is voting interest that may influence priority. No guarantees. I never want to give the impression that whatever's the top element on the list is the next thing that'll be worked on, because it is just more of a, okay, well this is good, but I think this needs to be done before that, so yeah. Or, you know, Grin is agreeing to do whatever is top of the list. I think that's what I heard. And so you can vote for whatever hard thing is there, because Grin has said he's going to do it in a timely manner as well. How kind of him. I hope not. I hope I won't run out of technique ideas. There is a lot of cool things I'd like to do with the schools, and we will see if I have enough options in me for 3 more realms. But I think it'll be good. I think it'll be fine. Making the techniques for each realm is the most fun part, personally. So I'd be more than happy to put more effort into that. Okay, so the issue with this view here is the drag and drop is going to be a pain to do. It would need to be like really easily scrollable. Ah, I can't spell silhouette. Where's my rubber? There we go. There we go. Expeditions turned out so well. It can be very, very good, and it is really fun. The only thing it needs is more events. That is literally the only issue I see with it. And that's just because people spend so much time in it because it's fun. But yeah, we can easily do that. The more you fall to her... I mean, so Ti Daofeng, she's going to have a lot more content in the sex system, which is what will be built after the tournament system. The idea is that she will have... I mean, she's obviously the headline. She's the first major character you meet. And so she needs a lot more content. She needs more story, she needs more actions, she needs more interactivity with the player. That's all going to be built in around with a more in-depth sect. But yeah, that will happen. But yeah, we don't want something like if you lose to her, she gets stronger, because that will immediately put the player into a downward spiral. Maybe it's something that we have for like a hard mode where losing to an enemy makes the enemy stronger to like punish you, but not for a normal player. It would be frustrating, I can feel, for most. It should not be possible, and even if you do, the game will assume that you died, because it will... Like, for example, if you turn on invincibility in dev mode, you'll still be treated as if you died. Okay, so... I am going to just throw this at Claude. Chop-de-chop. Here's an updated UI design. Build that. Yeah, I mean, the idea... Ti Daofeng's Shard quest is the major branch point in the game. So we will want to have a lot more around that to make it a bit more exciting. So there needs to be a lot of effort put into either side of the... giving it to her. So the romance. Not giving it to her and the bad stuff. I will be back in a minute. Give me a sec. Hello again. Sorry about that. Right, yes, so dialogue updating is definitely planned and it's going to be required. It's just, as Grin said, there is a lot of dialogue, and going through it all it's very time consuming. And there's also, we're not fully sure how much, like what kind of level of respect we should be giving at every point in time. It's not something that we can just do on a quick whim. It's something that needs to be consistent across all events. It needs to be baked into the world. It needs to have actual consequences. So there's a lot of work involved. Yeah. Look, constant polishing. Yep, there is a lot of... We understand that a lot of players will skip most of the dialogue. But sadly, if you just remove it, the game feels empty. But it needs to be there so that the game feels like it has consequences. Because we don't have the visual aspect to make up for the lack of dialogue. If we remove the dialogue, we would need to have a ton more images, animations, that kind of thing. That would take 10 times as long as writing the dialogue. Yeah, there's no what's it called? Like, it's not a choose your own adventure or anything like that where it has major branching paths. There's only one branching path, which is the Tidao Feng one. At the moment, there may be some more in the future, but at the moment there's only one major branch, because the core of the game is the combat and crafting system. That is what the entire game revolves around. That is the decision making. That's all of the stuff that we want people to engage with. The dialogue is just there to give flavor to the world. And I'm really happy with the dialogue. I like the lore that we have, the fact that we at least try to push the lore as a more immersive thing, where it's not, I wouldn't say hidden, but it is, you need to put together the story from a lot of different aspects, item descriptions, dialogues, character things, books, all that kind of stuff. Instead of just trying to force a story down the player's throat, which is why the game is quite, I'd say, story light. It doesn't have a really big core main quest that has a bunch of stuff you need to click through. But yeah, there is a lot of things that is on the list to do. It's quite character focused in the way that most of the story is presented through a character's story. And so that will obviously be fleshed out more. Currently, there's only really the start of Aima's story and the start of Pilip's story, or maybe the start and middle of Pilip's story, depending on how much we want to do with it. But none of the other characters really have much story, and that will definitely need to be expanded out and fleshed out. Oh yeah, look, I know I've made it if someone makes a lore video about it all. Right, okay, so Claude has worked away at our lovely design, and as you can see here, we have a new design. It's not bad, It's certainly a step in the right direction. I'm not opposed to that, but consider every decision point is then something you need to propagate throughout the rest of the game. You need to make those decisions matter, otherwise there's no point in having the option to make the decision. And because the decisions need to matter, that means that the story needs to be twice as much work. Because you need to have each branch written. Essentially, the more branches, the more meaningful decisions you have, it multiplies the work required to do future content for every single one. So yeah. Yeah. The UI looks bad, but the layout is better. The layout is what we want to get nailed down first before we do anything else. It claims I'll be able to add this. Not really. It's... Wait, did that add... No, it didn't add it. It added it to the end. I mean, it's not terrible. It's just not good. Well, look, the difference between opposed and not prioritizing. I'm not opposed to the idea. We do have consequences, like the whole Tidal fan quest. It's just that we don't have a lot of places where we want to add it right now, because the goal is to just get the game together. However, in the future, maybe it's going to be a case that we go back and we look at every single decision point, well, every single point where there could be a decision, and then we write a choice in there and then propagate it onwards. So there's a lot of different things that we could do, and we're not saying we won't do them. It's just we won't do them right now, if that makes more sense. So, I mean, the glyphs, fine. They look solid. If you click this, it gives you another dialogue that needs tidying up. That's fine though. We got this. This reordering does work, so that's good at least. We probably want some sort of... Maybe we just split these so it has the silhouette for each. I was fully aware that we weren't going to achieve finishing the research by the end. It's more of a talking stream where I also do some stuff in the background. Yeah, maybe we need to stack the silhouettes. Maybe we split it. So we have the icon on the left, then we have the silhouettes on the right, which fill up, and then we can click to collect them. So it's a bit more... It makes use of the horizontal space and shows all the different options. I can't... How many windows do you want me to have? No, look. Okay, let me just put this one up on screen. Right. I'm calling Grin out here. Okay, so this is Grin's design. So the issue with this one here is the timeline would be problematic, because how would you indicate when it ends? You'd have them kind of like fill up. I mean, I guess... Okay, ignore me. You could have them just fill up, and then fill up and fill up and fill up, and you'd have some sort of indication that this takes 3 months. There's a date at the end. But yeah, it would... Maybe it's better. Maybe it's better. And maybe my... I like the timeline, but maybe the timeline is just not working. Wait, does... Get distracted again. Optimization-wise, are you still having... Where are you having issues? And where is it slowing down? And is it on the latest version? Vertical. I'm not sure what you mean by vertical or horizontal. By this currently, do you mean what's on screen or what we were playing around with? Yeah, feel free to hop on over to the Discord and raise the places you think. Give specifics about where it's slow and where it's having issues, and we can look to optimize. As Primal said, combat has been massively optimized to try and make some of the builds that people have been posting in the Patreon supporters actually work. There is a few in there which absolutely killed a machine, which are now super smooth. So, yeah. Hopefully, it'll have similar options to fix it based on whatever issues you're running into. Okay, so back to the goal. I think the issue is the visibility of it filling up. Like, I think if we had all of these here, I would assume that they'd all fill up at the same rate because they're all the same line, right? Rather than it being a continual track where it has to do one row at a time. So like maybe I would assume it would do something like the following. That is not what I meant to do. Where's the boxed rectangle? Nope. How do I make a filled rectangle? There we go. Like it would fill up kind of like that. No, I know what it should do, but visually, this is what it would imply, right? I mean, Lucifer, try it and tell me, because it should be fast. And if it isn't, say so I can look into it and share it specifically, so I can actually look into it. Because everything should be pretty speedy now. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like my timeline. You know, this is it's got a continual it's got continuity between the items, and you can see that, you know, this one at the top is the most current and the one below it is it's not. Yeah, and on the combat performance, the old issue where it used to slow down if you made many stacks of buff doesn't happen anymore, because what used to happen is it used to run the triggers per stack. Now it runs the triggers in one go with the stack count as an argument, so it does one execution per block rather than, 100. Yep, so the goal of the rework is to remove the need to click things manually and just essentially work through it. The idea is you queue things up and you go away and you come back, exactly like with the herb garden. So you maybe return to it every few years, you collect your research and then you put more stuff in. And also to give more incentive to do more sublimes, because you will unlock a speed up to research for every sublime craft. So you'll be able to use Sublime to craft glyphs which speed up research. So that's the concept of a better research system, or at least a version 1 of a better research system. Oh, if it's the Blossom build that used to use the Stone Garden sigil, that has been optimized massively. That was one of the ones which I specifically targeted. So that one is actually really fast now. I think actually most of the Patreon seal builds that like crashed the game were using that sigil, so that was a target. Yep, yeah, that's the Stone Garden sigil. Yeah, so that one has been optimized a lot, so it should be really fast now. So I mean, the layout here is decent, right? What? Like a tech tree in other games. Yeah, I mean, you still have to indicate the queue somewhere, right? That's what the timeline is. And that's kind of what we're discussing, I guess. Like, where does the timeline display? I mean, I guess you could just have it so it just says this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3, and then has a bar which says how far you are through the current one. I just kind of wanted to make it look cooler. With like a full timeline UI. But hey, look, we could go even simpler, right? Yeah, exactly. So an item component that shows the silhouette of the item you discover is definitely what I want to add. So the idea would be we add it, say, here. Oh, this bloody tooltip. Let me get rid of the tooltip. Wait, 1 second. Let me just draw it on. Maybe we can tell Claude to get on with it. Wait, no. That's my... Okay, so we have ourselves... There's box. So... Maybe we just need to put... that in there. We have ourselves here. Yeah, these are items, trust me. Wait, what does a sword look like? Yeah, sword. How about a hammer? Yeah, so essentially you have the silhouettes down here, and as they fill up, they become... Well, maybe they get like a gold border, and then when you click them, they fly out, and they turn into the real thing with a dialogue of what you've researched. Ah. So, a silhouette of the recipe results on the right of timeline item. It should get a gold shiny border when it's ready to be collected. Yeah, I mean, I like just throwing more animations in. You know, another part of it is I do need to remake the trailer at some point, and I do need more animations to shove into it. That is obviously a very key thing to keep in mind, is the more fancy animations and things I can shove into a trailer, the better. I can also do better ads then as well. Because one of the downsides of the game is it doesn't translate well visually to ads, which makes it really hard to advertise, as it may, obviously. Yep. I mean, I do need more ads that focus on the more aesthetically pleasing characters in the game, because look, it sells, right? And I would love to sell more. And as part of that, I will be starting to look for an artist to hopefully join us. Partially paid. We'll see how much we can afford. But hopefully that will also help us make the visual portion, the art portion, a bit more palatable to a lot of people. I know that AI will be a problematic topic for quite a while, so it's probably best for us to find something else for now. Just at least for the more visible, the things that are on screen more, so characters. I think for like techniques and things, that doesn't matter. Like items and techniques, who cares? Yeah, that'll be another thing that's on my giant list of stuff to do, is to go and actually start to hunt down someone. It is obviously a problematic thing to do. I'll probably put something on the main menu, like a little, hey, if you're an artist and you're interested, come get in touch. But we'll see. I have a lot of things to do, and not much time to do them in. Not the least of which is actually finish any of these little side questy things we're going on. So, better research, just because it's been hanging over mine and Gwyn's heads for ages, and I just want to get something better in that. And the tournament rework, that obviously we had a stream on that, so we need to distill the plans from that in and actually build something from it. Again, it would be another V1, because we want to do a more fancy tournament system as part of a more fancy sex system. But for like a version 1, just to get the tournaments themselves a bit nicer. Now, in the next release, there is one thing that's being added, which is that when you go do a tournament, if you pass at least 2 rounds, the game will scrape your build. And if the build is considered to be appropriate, it will be added in as an option that the next time any other player does a tournament, they might run into that build. So the build variety will expand over time. So the tournaments will be more exciting or more difficult. We'll see. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the crazy stuff that comes out of that. So along with the improved tournament UI and stuff, hopefully that will make the tournament a bit more exciting. And then, of course, a simple version of a sex system where you can get promoted, you get more resources, there's new mission types, and you can become an elder and manage other people and send them out to get you resources. That will be quite exciting to have in. And then we will go back to trying to push towards the next realms, get a version 1 hopefully get a version 1 of the full game as soon as possible. My goal is still within a year, or maybe a year and a half, to be able to get to the end. For you to actually finish the game, reach the end credits. Will it be a fully fleshed out every realm? No. But we will take it as fast as we can to that point. Yes, Merchant Guild will come. There's a bunch of stuff in the roadmap people can have a look through. They can propose big features. We'll see. But yeah, the idea will be I'll be trying my best to avoid major side quests, and we'll just be focusing in on trying to push forward to the next realms. Will it pan out? I don't know, but we will hopefully be able to do something along those lines. At the end of the day, my requirements are that this becomes a viable business. Aha! Well, well, well. Aren't you in luck? It's in game now. So you'll be able to follow it in the future. So, yeah. Yeah, Grin has agreed to do whatever gets the highest number of stars. So, yeah. Yeah, this version will hopefully be released either tonight or tomorrow morning, depending on when the current batch of translations come back. Yeah, so Grin has agreed to do it by, what was it? Maybe let's give him to the end of the month. I think that's generous. The whole 2 weeks. I mean, I've already voted for it, so that puts it at the top. Pretty much everything else here is side quests, so yeah. There is a variety of big features we will need to convert into things to go on here. I think there's probably quite a few things in Discord and the graveyard that is my GitHub issues list. Yeah, it's just the catch-all thing for more romance, new characters, extended romances, and companion stories. So this is an example. We are fully tangenting here. The roadmap is currently got big ticket items on it. This will be broken down to specific ticket items. Well, when you say nothing to do inside of them, would you say that life flourishing has nothing to do inside of it? Because life flourishing is kind of the level of content is what I'm talking about. It is more stuff to do in all of the major things. It is the core mechanic of the realm. It is the core quests of the realm. It is obviously all the new items and things. It is essentially everything but deeply fleshed out stories. There's a lot of content that's on the list of things we'd like to add to a realm that just gets cut because we could keep working on life flourishing for another 6 months. There's so many ideas that we could put in. However, that's not healthy for the game. Getting each realm out is more important than making each realm super deep, because players get a negative experience if they hit the limits of where they can play to. Now, of course, if you are someone who's playing the game a lot, you hardcore player, you will notice when we don't have those extra bits, because you'll be playing through the realms more and more times. However, it's that new player experience where they're doing their first playthrough and they're pushing ahead. They're not going through in every single nook and cranny of the game. Those people, we need to have the experience of feeling like the game is complete. Once they have that, and you can play all the way through to the end, we'll then go back and building out everything. Yeah. So world reactivity. So the dialogue update for being LF is just not there. It's not made at the moment, and that is partially because one of the major elements is the reaction to the sect. That is not there. That needs to be built first. Once that is in, then the dialogue update will build on top of that. And the reactivity to the world currently will be through your influence over the sect. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's obviously the big trade-off of there is a focus that needs to be on monetization, and this is obviously a sad element of this, is the amount of time it takes to build out a new realm and build out the content is huge. It is working full-time, probably 3 to 4 months of work per realm, with what it currently has, and you could probably extend up to 6 months per realm if you want to go as wide as we can. But these aren't monetized, like these aren't DLC. I'm getting no more money off them from the people who've already played. And eventually that will trickle down to the point where it's not feasible to continually build content for essentially zero income. And that needs to be part of... Potentially there needs to be some remonetization of some of it. There needs to probably be some of it be DLC. And I don't want to do that until after you can actually technically play through the whole game, like to the end. So there's this sort of kind of like balance of needing to figure out what is good to flesh out the game versus what is stuff that can be sectioned off so that it can actually be affordable. You know, for example, we want an artist. That means we need to pay at least 2 salaries. That is a lot of money, and we're not currently making that. So there is a large element that needs to be pushing forward to the things that will make the game more financially viable. So yeah. So yeah, the idea is we push through to build out the game to the point where it is a full game, and that will be being quite aggressive of cutting things which would, though they'd be nice, in the world, aren't necessarily important. So yeah, it is building out essentially the full realms with just enough content in each realm to make the realm feel fleshed out. And I do admit that currently with Life Flourishing, it is missing the world reactivity, I'd say. You know, all that dialogue that reacts to you being a Life Flourishing cultivator. But as I mentioned, that takes a huge amount of time to write, and there's not that many people who read it all. Yeah, most people skip through all the dialogue, so there is a the focus has to be on making the content that people really play, with then the, you know, maybe it's more like 80% on new game mechanics and 20% on dialogue updates. So yeah, and Life Flourishing has had that. Like, it has a lot of quests, it has a lot of lore all throughout. It just hasn't had updates to that much of the previous lore. Or, sorry, the previous quests and the previous conversations. And yeah, that will come. And the intention is that will come as part of the sect work, because as part of that it needs to react to your, what's it called? Your rank, or, you know, are you an inner disciple, outer disciple, elder? And also then we can put in things like, what's your realm? Essentially, as we're going to have to rewrite it then anyway, we might as well rewrite it with the consideration of all the different parts that will be available, versus doing it once and then coming back in a few months' time and just doing the whole thing all over again. So yeah, that's where that world reactivity is currently scheduled. It's like as part of this here. But we'll see. Maybe it will be that there are some high priority things that will come first, or some areas where it's quite clear that we want to add it. But we'll see. Yeah, look, people just don't like to read. There is a large segment of the player base who just want to find a build, feel strong, and just click through. Which is fine. That's an absolutely fine way to play. But yeah, reading is hard, and it's time consuming, especially if there's no voices, there's no animations. It is currently quite dull compared to other games to look at. So I can see why people don't. The portion of the players who love reading and stuff is quite small. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to keep them in mind, because that is the core of the game. That will always be something that will be worked on. That's why we have so much story. And it is a constant balance of being like, how much writing do we want to have versus how much... No, we don't want the writing to overstay its welcome. We want it to be focused enough that it gets enough of the story through without it being too wordy. So yeah, it's a balancing act, right? That is something I'd like. Character expressions for events it is feasible to do, and I'd like actually have alternative poses, not just expressions. But again, that's something that making all of them takes time, and hooking them up, potentially something we dump on an artist. Yeah, a lot of the world is just its setting, right? People like that it's there, even if they don't necessarily read all of it. You know, like when I play Skyrim, I'm like, that's all the books. I'm not going to read any of them, but I appreciate that some developer has made them. But yeah, the gist of it is, when we say fleshed out, there are different levels that we're talking about here. We do want it to be fleshed out enough that, you know, people like yourself feel like the world reacts to you, that there's stuff to do. That's always going to be the baseline we want to build in for every single realm. However, when, you know, Grin and I talk about fleshed out, we have a big board of all the different things, all of our different ideas. Fleshed out to us means we did all of them. That is probably never going to happen because there is a ton of stuff there. So when we say we want to go back and flesh things out, there is just so many ideas we want to add and build out that may or may not see the light of day. Yeah, that is the reality. But we always want the game to feel like it's got enough content and it's fleshed out enough. And that will come over time. You know, like, for example, when Pillar Creation released, it was quite, I'd say bare bones, right? It had the core mechanics. It pretty much just added fallen stars, and that's about it. And over time, it gets more stuff. And that's the kind of same thing that we have here, or that we'll be looking for the future, is that it will be, you know, we add a new realm, then we add new mechanics, and then those mechanics might get backdated to earlier realms because there are, you know, they make sense. There's a new area of the world that you might explore into. And so the world just sort of gets more fleshed out as it goes, and then we progress up to the final release. V1 release, where we flip it from early access to V1, because that's obviously a big moment. And then we go back and we build stuff. It's DLC and just general updates for, I don't know, until people stop buying them, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I would love people to make some videos on it. That'd be great. Okay, no. So I work on everything, and Grin works on everything too. Just he's part-time, and he's paid. He's not unpaid. So he gets a portion of the a percentage as a revenue share kind of thing. It's entirely up to Grin what he works on. But he works on systems, he does art, he does writing, he does new items. He does a bit of everything. So yeah, a big variety. We don't have enough people for anyone to specialize just yet. And some people in the community have aided in other ways. So, for example, we've had some people produce alternative combat algorithms for how Barrier works. We have Primal, who does some writing every now and again for us. You know, there is. Ari's done a bit of work on events. So there are some people who've contributed some little elements as well. So it's not possible to call it a solo project anymore. There's definitely a small team forming, but for pay, currently it's only enough for like one full-time developer. But that's what we'll be working on. We're working on increasing it to the point where we can get more people on to work on it full-time, and so on and so forth. Yep, the altars. I've got an awesome document, and that is going to be under better breakthroughs is when we'll go back and actually influence and change around that. Potentially to also address the issue where people are feeling like they have to do 27 altars. That's quite negative. There's a lot of dissatisfaction with the grind for certain elements of it. So it's something I would want to address then as well. But I'm not touching it for now because I could keep looping on that forever. We've pushed it off here. If loads of people upvote it, then Grin will work on it. That's what he said, right? But for me, this is what I'm focusing on after this. And then this. That's the plan. Cool, so research. we got somewhere, right? We got to this. It's needs a bit more work. There is some yeah. Look, message me on Discord with what kind of stuff you want to work on. We obviously have a very robust modding API that can do essentially anything in the game, or almost everything. So the depending on what you want to do, that is where you could start. You can literally do the thing, and that's where I'd prefer anyone to start. We've had quite a few people who said they want to do things and then just flake out. So obviously, to save a lot of time, I'd prefer people to just show what they can do with a mod, because that is something that can easily be brought into the game. If you like doing it, if you continue to do it, yeah, great, let's make it a more like full-time arrangement to work together. But if there is no... If you find out you don't like it, or if, sadly, if your stuff isn't good, I don't want to spend too much time... And it isn't, a personal thing, this is on anyone who wants to contribute. I don't want to spend a ton of time then, trying to get them all souped up and sorted out for them to just vanish. It's not time well spent. But that's part of why the modding API is so solid. People can build anything they like, and then that is a nice, what's it called? A conversion funnel from solid modder to dev. Would love to bring more people on board, and we'll see. Yeah, it just depends on people's availability and interest in doing so. I hope that answered your question. Right, back to poking around at this. Is this even a good approach? Is this even the right direction? Does it look good at all? I'm not super sold, I have to say. Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I think there's bigger problems than the M alignment. I think the whole thing looks terrible. The boxes are linked to the time duration. It's a timeline, so it shows how long it'll take. Okay, so on the modding thing, like design docs are great, but obviously I'm already limited on time. Really, what we'd like is someone to actually make the thing rather than just give ideas. Because yeah, ideas are great; they go into the pool, but it doesn't help me actually deliver anything faster. Hmm. Well, I don't want upgrading to literally double the speed, because researchers still take time. I think that's why it's 30% faster, not 100% faster per glyph. I mean, we could just go the simple approach, which is it's just as it was suggested earlier by someone. Sorry, I terrible names. Whoever suggested it, you just click this thing and it just adds in a queue. It just says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Based on what you click, and you get a progress bar across the top. The simplest possible solution. There's no confusion about how long. There's no indication about how long it will take. Other than maybe, you have a tooltip that says this will occur in 500 days. I mean, the original idea was to have it be horizontal because of that. It's just boxes, and it has the, it's this one, then this one, this one, this one, then this one. That might be better than just the vertical then, because the only reason for the vertical is to have a clearer timeline. If you're just going to dump the timeline, we can just put it as a single row, and that means it is a bit simpler visually. Essentially, you just have 3 rows on screen. You have the glyphs, you have the timeline, you have your materials. And you can have each material be the same width. Then you can easily drag them around. Or maybe we just have click and re-add. Like, how often are you actually going to drag them around? I'd say probably not very often. You're most likely going to just add them and remove them. Or most likely just add them in general. A time slot rectangle. I would need to look that up. Nope, I have getting no useful hits. Do you have a link for what that would look like? Yeah, I mean that is the other option. I mean that was what Yinan was suggesting, is you just have it be a vertical timeline, right? Like not a timeline, it's like a vertical list. And it's this one, then this one, then this one, and this one. That is similar to what Grin's idea was, if we just bring that up on screen again. You have 1, 2, 3, and then you... And, I mean, they have a lot more stuff on screen, but... Primal, I think the issue with that is people just be frustrated. Like, the immediate be like, why can I not just queue everything? It's going to take 2 years anyway, and I'm going to go into an expedition, so what's stopping me from... Other than... the game mechanics, why are you restricting it? Because it already has the extended time cost. because a lot of this as well, and a lot of the intention behind the time cost was, well, okay, originally the idea was it was to give people a time sink to kind of skip ahead in time. Yeah, so a horizontal timeline, essentially just a queue. I think that's what I started with. Yeah, it is more for people to be kind of like forced to go through longer periods of time. So it wasn't essentially to try and avoid the whole I've got to pillar creation at 20 years old. It's to be like, well, here's some things that literally take a lot of time. There is no way around it. Now we have things like expeditions and whatnot, stuff you go out and do. So with this, I guess the new intention behind it would be to say, here's a bunch of stuff you put in. Now you need to go and wait for them to be done. Go play the rest of the game and come back. Kind of like encouraging people to take, go meditating, go do expeditions, go do something else. Well, yeah, hard mode will definitely have options for people to, shatter. That would be cool. Again, it's something that there's quite a few things where it goes in the lore, this would be bad, but we can't add it into the game because if some player just playing through it runs into this, like they say they hit life flourishing, they completely ignore life forms and go, mess around for 20 years and then die, they'd be crazy frustrated. So we don't want to have any of these kind of super punishing mechanics in the base difficulty. However, hard mode, great, you've clicked the box which says life flourishing will kill you. So you have opted in. It's fully on your head at that point. And we'll have tons of those. Lifespan will be limited. We'll just delete all the fruits. You won't be able to get lifespan, except for breakthroughs. Maybe we'll halve those as well. Essentially, lifespan should be a limited resource that you actually have to optimize around in hard mode. If you pick that particular modifier, difficulty thingy. Well, that's the thing. That's the point with hard mode, right? Is we can add all those things. And I think for a lot of the people who go on the Discord, those are the hardcore players. They're the kind of people who will play all of these crazy modifier things. There will be I hope there'll be some very hilarious posts of, I spent 200 hours on this character and then they shattered. I'd be like, great. You've made my day. I love it. But yeah, that will definitely be for people who know what they're getting into, because that is a minority of the player base. As I've mentioned this many times, but our second highest reason for refunds is difficulty. And remember, that's in the first 2 hours. So that's Body Forging Realm difficulty. Yeah, but maybe we're going back to the original design. You just have essentially it's a queue. We get rid of the concept of a timeline. It's just a queue at the top. Yeah, that's probably fine. And we'd probably even remove drag and drop. We'll just have click to add and click to remove. Get it as simple as possible. Yeah, I won't do that one right now. I'll reprompt it in throw Claude at the problem to get it back to the original state, and then build off that afterwards. Yeah, so difficulty in body forging, literally. Because remember, the game does require you to read things. Like, you have to actually read what flow does to understand how to use techniques. And that is apparently too much for many players. Well, just you wait. So, another quick tangent. Look, I'm just going to keep talking about the whole thing about my tangents. So, one big thing that has been constantly present is the fact that the mathematics of combat design is just wrong. So, there is a massive mismatch between the numbers used to generate player health versus numbers used to generate enemy health. And that's because enemy health is derived from the desired difficulty of that encounter. So the health of an enemy is essentially... Okay, this is how combat is built, by the way. When I design an enemy, I say this enemy should be... It should take 5 turns to kill, and it should do 200% of the player's health over those 5 turns. Those are the numbers that are essentially baked in. Then the actual numbers, the actual health, is derived based on... Well, if the enemy has to survive for 5 turns before it dies, we figure out how much damage a player should be able to do per technique. We multiply that by the stance and the technique. The techniques and the stance, and then we will multiply that by the turns. That's how much health the enemy will have. And then their power is the number of techniques they have to survive. That's the... And then they have to do 200% damage over those techniques. It's that percentage of the player's health divided by how many techniques it's going to do, and then that is its power. So that's how we derive enemy stats. But as you see, they are derived from the player's stats. So the issue becomes the power of a player massively outstrips its health. So a lot of things break down. So for example, because healing is based off of power, and the power massively outscales the health of the player, by by pillar creation, you should be full healing every single healing technique. Essentially meaning if you don't one-shot a character, like for example, if you don't one-shot a cultivator, they're probably full healing every technique, so they're invincible. So that's one thing we want to address, because it is just not healthy. It is just becomes this massive burst war where either you are completely invincible, or an enemy does enough damage to one-shot you, and until that point, you are immortal. Which just sucks, because it means you have no indication that you're about to die. You're just like, I'm alive, I'm dead. That's not fun. Well, in my opinion, it's not fun, because it takes away some of the anticipation. So part of what I'm going to be looking to do as well is to fix that dynamic, is to go through, change the way that stats are derived to make them more symmetrical. So both enemy health and player health is derived from a shared stat, roughly. And so that means that player health will be a lot bigger. So for example, in pillar creation, I will probably be looking at like 8 million health, rather than 200,000 or whatever. However, that has a knock-on effect. But obviously that means that player damage will increase. Match. But that will mean that player defenses will be proportionally less, because obviously they're based on power. The power of the player is not going to increase. That means the amount that, say, a barrier technique protects you is going to be much worse, and healing will be much worse. Now, I did test this a few days ago, and it just made the game just really unfun because you just died to everything. So there's a whole load of rebalancing that's going to be required as part of that. And that means that things like blood healing is going to be much worse. It means that Blossom healing, essentially healing for all, will just be much worse. I mean, all the stats will be much worse defensively. This is going to be quite difficult to actually make fun. But I think it's required, because it's just not good at the moment. Anyway, there we go. That's my my rant about the topic. On the topic of what you're all talking about, there is a lot of people who see their an RPG, a Xantra RPG that is in English that want to play it. There is a lot of different players that would love a game like that, and there's nothing on the market. Maybe you play Tale of Immortal, and then, well, what else are you going to play? There's nothing else out. I mean, what's it called? There's a game that released recently whose name I've completely blanked on, but that's like the only other one. So Ascend from My Mountains fits into that gap of, well, it's like the only games available, right? School of Tyroo, yeah. So there's a lot of people who want this style of game that will try it, and I want them to be able to play too, because obviously, hey, why would I only want a tiny portion of players? I want more players, and so they give the game a try, and then they run into a wall where they have expectations that the game will be a bit more forgiving, and it isn't. So that's something that is partially a player problem, like partially people going into it with the idea of it's just going to handhold me and make me feel powerful. Like for Tale of Immortal, you can just run around and click one button. You don't need to do any thinking. You just hold the shoot button and you run around. Easy peasy. This is not like that, but I think there is definitely an element that can bring it closer, or at least an element of education that can get those players who are coming in with the expectation of, I'm just going to go off and I'm just going to switch brain off and feel like a hero in a Xantra story, to actually get to the point of engaging with the mechanics. Because I'm fully aware that the current tutorial introduction is terrible. It essentially drops you in, shoves a bunch of tutorials on your face and says, learn, and then expects you to have internalized all that information, or have spent the time to pause, read, and understand. That is not common. And I think that is my problem, that I need to improve the tutorial to ease people into things a bit closer, a bit smoother. But that's something that can be done. Yeah, so Tale of Immortal is good. It is really fun. It is also the game that inspired me to make Ascend from My Mountains, because there was things that are iffy that I didn't like, and I was like, I can do that better. So that's why I started making Ascend from My Mountains. So you'll see that there's a lot of inspiration in Ascend from Tale of Immortal, because Tale of Immortal was the reason I started making this game. But I really enjoyed it. Like, I was obsessed with Tale of Immortal for like 2 weeks. I played it constantly, like all day, every day. And I finished it and I was like, damn, I could make that. And then I was like, okay, well, if I was going to make if I was going to make a me version, what would it be? And I was like, a bit of Slay the Spire, a bit of Auto Battler, a bit of Final Fantasy crafting, a bit of all these little bits for different games. So, and then here we go. Like, for example, one major thing that I didn't like is the fact that there's no real characters in Tale of Immortal. Like, everyone is generated, except for like some minor ones, but they're not really characters, they're just people who show up in the story. They're not like people you can interact with and run around with and stuff like that. So that was like one thing that I changed. I was like, I want the characters, at least the majority of the characters, to be ones with actual stories that are persistent, that aren't randomly generated, and to be very clear distinction between this is a character you can forget because it's generic, and this is a character you can engage with. It's a full sandbox. Like, their world generation in Tales of Mortal is fantastic. Like, it is so detailed, and they've done a fantastic job with it. I think it is. You will get a good 30 to 40 hours of gameplay out of it before you start to notice the loops and stuff, but maybe more depending on how quickly you play through. So I think it's definitely worth the money. I would definitely recommend giving it a play. And there's lots of very lovely mods on the workshop. Some high quality character art swapping. Hey, look, I know you'll be back. I made it for a reason. Yeah, so another tangent here. I would love for the Ascent from My Mountains workshop to have a similar level of cultured mods in the workshop. That'd be fantastic. Yeah, the only people who watch my streams are people who come from the Discord. No one finds it through Twitch, so it's only people who already have the game. Yeah, but more interesting variety of art, so people can, make the game more visually appealing. Look, if someone wants to make a Thomas the Tank Engine mod where you can have, I don't know, Amar be Thomas the Tank Engine and follow you around, fantastic. That would also be hilarious and brilliant. And maybe if there's enough crazy stuff like that, we can attract some of the YouTubers who make silly videos of modded versions of games. That'd be cool. I mean, we've pretty much only had 2 YouTubers make videos about the game, which is, the one guy and the other guy. I'm so bad with names. But yeah, that's... Beyond that, pretty much that. Nothing. Yep. Babel something. He did some solid videos on it too, so... And in fact, actually, Babel Builder, that's right, that's the one. In fact, it was his stream of the game, or his video of the game, I guess. It was streamed on YouTube, so it's kind of like, what's the video, what's the stream? Was what inspired me to do the animations, or the poses in the game. So that was cool. Yeah, I mean, it's unsurprising that no one else is making English versions of a Chinese genre. I'm glad that I am actually, I have a niche, because frankly, if this game was just Western fantasy, it probably would not have been picked up. There is very little. There's very little chance that anyone would have noticed the game if it wasn't Xantia. Which is absolutely fine. Like, I wouldn't say necessarily it's a negative light on the game. It's just because the indie game market is saturated as hell, and you are lucky to anyone to find your game ever. So I'm very happy that I have something that stands out, which is the fact that it is an English one. And you will notice as well, it is very westernized, right? It's not actually following... I'm not a massive consumer of cultivation stories, which means I've read quite a few, but I'm not like crazy high on it. There's a lot of things which are not correct, which I've been told many times. A lot of things which I haven't done traditionally. Now, the realms are different, enemies are different, how things work mechanically are different, the setting is different. I don't have dowels or anything like that. It's a westernized version. I think a bigger inspiration for me was Cradle, if you've ever read that, where it is a take on the genre rather than a faithful setting in that in that kind of like the Xantia tropes, I guess. Yeah. Interestingly, I don't know if anyone here speaks Chinese. In the original Chinese translations, do they talk in that super stilted, crazy metaphor way in stories? Or is that translator jank? Because, I can never really tell. Do they actually? Okay. Because it's hard to know. Or should say, is the metaphors and things common language in Chinese? Because that could also be the issue, right? Because if naturally in Chinese you tend to use these idioms and things, then it's not weird. It's not like strange. It's only because in the West we don't that it really stands out as it was Xantia style speech. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's true actually, you're right. It's just the different idioms that stand out. And everyone knows that Qi is the right pronunciation, right? Or is it Qi? I don't know. I think I've read something that it's supposed to be like Japanese versus Chinese, like traditions have the different pronunciation. I don't know. I never really thought about it much. Well, we have the firmament. Well, look, it's two characters, right? It's got a Q and an I. So I'll just say QI from now on. Which is a great show, by the way. If you haven't experienced the awesomeness that is QI, I would highly recommend go watch some of those episodes of it. Fantastic British show. Well, the firmament is some of my favourite stuff that I have spent a lot of time thinking about. I hope you will enjoy the full story of everything once it comes out. I know some people have put together. I've seen some people write out theories, and they have been correct on the overall cosmology and what's actually going on, which is cool. I love the fact that people have been able to put it together from what's currently in the game, and I think there's enough information in the game for you to speculate correctly. However, I know that a lot of it is supposed to be a bit obfuscated, so I hope you all enjoy as the world gets more fleshed out, or I should say, more revealed as things go on. Cool. Well, I think we made fantastic progress on the new research screen. we change everything and we're going to change it back. So I think we're going to end up where we started. Awesome. I'm glad. It's been a quite productive one. Look, to be honest, these dev streams are more like a chatting stream, right? It's just a chance for me to talk at you all and for you to listen to me ramble for 2 hours. It's kind of fun. That's why I keep doing it. And I'm glad you all like showing up to listen. Now, there will be a new version going out probably tomorrow morning at this point in time. Let's say in 12 hours from now, give or take. So you can all look forward to that. It will have the Sublime rework, which has been hopefully thoroughly tested now by our lovely patrons. So you'll have ones that work nicely and generally are fun. I guess we'll see on that one. And yeah, with that, I will leave you all to it. I hope you all have a fantastic evening. Again, if you don't know, I do have a schedule on Twitch that will be regularly streaming Mondays and Thursdays UK time from 4 to 6. But you can check whatever your local time is on the Twitch schedule. So yeah, you can join me at this time, hopefully every week, and I'll speak to you all again on Thursday. Have a great evening or day or whatever. Catch you next time. Bye bye.